This is Rank the World, where I'm going to rank everything on this planet, no matter how long it takes me. Illumination is a bit of a newcomer, having only been around for a little under 20 years, but they've already cemented themselves as a top-tier animation company, releasing some of the biggest animated movies ever made in their short lifespan. And even though there's only been 14 feature-length movies released, with number 15 coming soon with Despicable Me 4, they've definitely left their mark on the animation world. So today I'm going to be ranking all 14 feature-length movies released by Illumination to find the best and the worst that they have to offer. Alright, I've got them listed out here in chronological order, and so we're going to be starting with Despicable Me. Now, I don't think any other production company has had this huge of a debut with their first movie. Despicable Me was basically an overnight sensation and gave Illumination the legs it needed to stand on to become what it is today. And for good reason too. This movie is great. It's hilarious. You know, of course, you've got the Minions making their debut before becoming a staple of your grandparents' Facebook. But you've also got Steve Carell as Gru giving his all and just a ridiculous but fantastic performance. And even Jason Segel pulls off a great and funny performance as Vector, the villain's villain. This movie is so heartfelt and sweet though when it comes to Gru's new family, while also being extremely entertaining from beginning to end. So I think we're going to be starting off this list on a high here with an S tier movie right from the get-go. And then we're going straight to the gutter. Illumination's second movie, Hop. They tried doing something different here, bringing together CGI and live action, sort of like the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, even bringing in the director from that first movie. This movie stars James Marsden and a CGI rabbit. And you know, if I had a nickel for every time James Marsden got paired up with a CGI character,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
I didn't even know that this was an Illumination movie until I started making this list. It's like they gave the half live action thing a shot and were just kind of like, yeah, you know what? Let's never do that again. And I think that was a good call because this movie is definitely not one that I would call good. Is this the worst movie I've ever seen? Definitely not. I mean, I own Food Fight and Gooby on DVD. But it is without a doubt the worst movie on this list. This is going on D. Now, before I get into the Lorax, I have to say this movie has kind of become a meme in my friend group, so it's on my mind pretty frequently. Whenever a movie gets brought up in our group chat, somebody will always compare it to the Lorax, and it's always a very good time. Also, I gotta say, the marketing for this movie was really strange. It's like a very anti-capitalist, pro-environmental story, but they used it to advertise a bunch of stuff, including cars. But looking at the movie itself, I actually genuinely like it. It's got its flaws, the main one primarily being trying to make the little woodland creatures some sort of second tier minion phenomenon, which didn't work at all. It's got some fun voice acting, mostly in the form of Danny DeVito as the Lorax and Ed Helms as the Onceler. And the songs aren't too bad either. They're not super memorable for the most part, but they don't detract from the movie at all. I don't think this is necessarily an S tier movie, but I'd be happy throwing it on A. Now we've got the first sequel in Despicable Me 2. Following up a blockbuster movie is always a challenge, and having it be your first ever sequel probably puts some more weight on it as well, but I think Illumination did alright with what they had. I don't think it fully reaches the standards left by the first one. You know, that was sort of like lightning in a bottle, but it wasn't really a disservice to the movie either. This movie's funny enough and still tries to tug at the heartstrings here and there, you know, with Gru coming to terms with no longer being a villain but being a father instead. But ultimately, this movie is a bit forgettable, especially when it's compared to its predecessor. If you're a fan of the series, it's a fun watch, but there's honestly not too much special about it, so I'm gonna throw this one on B. And then going from their first ever sequel to their first ever spin-off, we've got Minions. Now, was a movie all about the little yellow guys from Despicable Me necessary? No. Did I enjoy it? Kind of. You'd probably think a movie based entirely around the zany henchmen would be awful, but it's actually decently funny and has a pretty fun plot. I don't think I'd call it a great movie, but it's watchable, you know, and it's alright to throw on if you're just looking for, you know, a silly little movie to watch. I don't think it fully reaches up to the first two though, so I'm gonna put this one on C. Next up, we've got Secret Life of Pets. So the concept here isn't really anything too crazy, you know, it's just what do your pets do when you leave the house? But, I mean, ultimately, this movie's okay. It's inoffensive, it has some funny moments here and there, and it's fun enough to keep you entertained for the majority of it. But none of the characters really stick out to me as anyone I'd want to see more of. You know, even the main character, Max, is pretty much a jerk the entire movie. This movie is certainly one of the movies of all time. I'm putting this on C. Alright, next up we've got Sing. I did not expect to enjoy either of the Sing movies. You know, I shouldn't. It's literally a movie about talking animals competing in a singing competition, singing top 40 hits. but these movies are great. All of the characters are so likable and enjoyable to watch, and you can't help but root for them all, even Seth MacFarlane's snide little mouse character at times. These movies have no right being as good as they are, but outside of Despicable Me, they're the best things this company's done. The characters are a blast to watch, the songs are honestly performed great and super entertaining. The only shortcoming this one really has for me is the plot, which while fun, it's, pretty predictable, but it does it really well, so it's not really a big deal. I think this one is going to go on A. Alright, Despicable Me 3. So, I think this is the weakest of the entire franchise. The plot pretty much feels like a bunch of side stories that barely intertwine with each other. You've got Gru's brother, Lucy learning to bond with the kids, and the Minions going to prison. It's got some funny moments, but it's not really too memorable. And the heart that was throughout the first movie and a little bit of the second is pretty much gone. The best things to come out of this movie are Trey Parker's villain role and that Hug Me song that went viral on TikTok a few years back. This movie is definitely the worst out of the franchise, and I hope number 4 can sort of course correct it a little bit. This is going to go on D. But you know what? This is definitely better than Hop, so 1 second. Alright, that's better. The Grinch. Now, if this was a tier list of Dr. Seuss movies, this would probably go towards the bottom. There's not much wrong with it, but compared to the other Dr. Seuss adaptations, even Grinch adaptations themselves, this is third place for sure. It's cute, the animation's good, the jokes are a bit hit or miss, but it doesn't even touch the original or the live action. Any heart that this movie has in it pretty much just comes from the source material. Benadryl Cucumber, he's a good voice actor, but his Grinch just sounds bored half of the time, and it makes me kind of bored to watch it. The best thing about this movie is definitely the Tyler, the Creator Christmas songs, both the 2 singles that he put out for the movie and the entire EP he put out of B-sides. But as for the movie itself, I'm going to place this on C for Christmas. All right, Secret Life of Pets 2. I think I like this one more than the first. Max is a lot more likable as the protagonist. It's funnier, especially Gidget's plotline, and the story actually hits some decent emotional beats. I actually feel something for the characters this time around, and the new characters are a nice addition too. So all in all, I think I'm going to put this above the first one on B. Alright, Sing 2. So I already talked about this movie a while back when I was ranking my kids' favorite shows and movies, but let me reiterate just a little bit. I have not seen any movie as many times as I've seen this one. If you forced me to choose a movie to recite word for word, this is my best choice. But even though I've seen this movie countless times, it's not a bad movie by any means. In fact, after watching it so often, I really like it. I think it really grew on me. The plot is really fun. The characters, both from the original and the new ones, are all just a blast to watch. There's so many good songs and performances in this, and honestly, some of them give me goosebumps every time I watch it. You've got Johnny's big song, Halsey's big number at the end, and then the final performance is just amazing, and I don't even like U2, but this cover and the way it's done is just so cathartic as an ending to the movie. I could just be like Stockholm Syndromed at this point for my toddler forcing me to watch this every day for months, but I think this movie's fantastic, and I think it's better than the first, and I'm throwing it on S tier. Alright, next up we have Minions, The Rise of Gru. So this is kind of both like a prequel and a standalone Minions movie, but it does the job of both of them very well. This is miles better than the first Minions movie. In fact, I think I'd call this the second best movie in the Despicable Me saga. Making Gru a bigger part of the story definitely helps the movie be a bit more grounded, even with how zany and crazy all the Minions are. But this movie is actually a lot of fun. From seeing how Gru got to be where he is, to the Minions going on a rescue mission just to save him, this movie is a blast to watch, and it's pretty engaging from beginning to end. We got tons of Easter eggs and cameos from the rest of the series, and the animation's the best out of all 5 of these movies. So I'm going to throw Rise of Gru on A. Next up, we've got the Super Mario movie. I'm going to be totally honest. I did not expect this movie to be as good as it was. Now, I knew it would be better than the utter garbage that came out in the 90s, but I think they actually still surpassed my expectations with this one. Sure, Chris Pratt doesn't really offer a lot to the voice of Mario, but every other voice casting in this movie was just top notch. I can't think of a single other character that I didn't think was perfect. You've got Keegan-Michael Key as Toad and Charlie Day as Luigi, and of course Jack Black as Bowser, all being like the standouts to me. This movie's funny, it's got some heart to it, an engaging plot that really leans into the video game lore as well as expanding on it in their own ways. And it's got some really fun action scenes and some great fan service moments as well that don't feel like forced in. I think my biggest gripe with this movie is how much Luigi was sidelined for most of it, and some of the emotional beats do fall a little flat for me, but all in all, this movie is a blast, and it's one of the best looking movies Illumination's ever made, and I'm excited for more to come from this. So this is a solid A tier for me as well. And then finally, we've got Migration. This is the only one I hadn't seen before making this list, but it's the newest from Illumination, and that really shows in the animation here. There are some scenes in this movie that are just absolutely beautiful to look at. Outside of that, this is a pretty decent kids movie. It's cute, it's got some good laughs and some fun characters, my favorite being Danny DeVito's and Aquafina's the Chump. I will say though, I didn't expect this to get as scary as it did at times. I started watching with my 2-year-old and she got very freaked out at parts of it and asked me to turn it off. Outside of that, this was a decently enjoyable movie. It's entertaining and it looks absolutely beautiful at times. I think this can sit firmly on B for Bird. And there you have it. Every single Illumination movie ranked. I think this is a company that got off on a good foot, stumbled a little bit, but are finding themselves back on a good path to become one of the biggest names in animation. And hopefully they stay on that path with Despicable Me 4 coming out soon. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, and let me know what you want me to rank next. Whether it's more movies, video games, music, TV, anything else out there. I'm trying to get through it all. As always, thanks for watching, and hit that little subscribe button down there. You want to keep up with all my future rankings. Right there, down there. I know you see it. Just a teensy little click. There you go.